It is Saturday the 9th of May. I've kind of settled into the routine of doing one of these videos every Saturday, and I'm probably going to continue that for as long as this lockdown madness lasts. It's just good to gather some thoughts and reflections on the week that's just gone. So where are we at now? Well, the plot has thickened on many levels, and it seems to me that different factions are just getting more invested in their way of thinking about this whole thing. So as far as normies go, regular members of society who believe everything the mainstream and the government tells them, they seem to be getting more and more entrenched in a fear-based state. They're literally believing every aspect of this narrative as it's spun. And I'm seeing things on chat threads and in forums and stuff like that from people making comments like, I don't care when the government tells us it's safe to go out and ease some of these restrictions and start frequenting public places again. I'm not leaving my house because I'm too afraid to go out. I'm not going back to work yet because this virus is everywhere, you know. So these people are, of course, very welcome to stay behind closed doors and quake away inside their houses. I think we should actually refer to them as modern-day Quakers. I think that's a pretty good term. So long as their behaviours don't affect the rights and the freedoms of those of us that have taken the personal responsibility of doing the research to know that there are many inconsistencies, anomalies and discrepancies with the official story, proving that the whole thing has been based on lies and deception. We've got more than enough information to know this now. Anyone with the will to look at it will discover that. Then you've got alternative truth-seeking types who are putting out ever more dystopian, Orwellian nightmare doom and gloom scenarios about what they say is just round the corner. Absolutely horrific stories about, this is the New World Order endgame. Lockdown is never going to be eased. Agenda 2030 is here. All you've got to look forward to is smart grid, AI-controlled 5G cities with facial recognition and microchips and vaccines and tracking and all this. And as I've said before, these kind of prophecies to a very large extent are unfounded, and they don't do anyone any favours when we've got families to look after and we've got to take care of ourselves and we're all locked away in this extraordinary situation. So people do have a responsibility to not put out information that is not based in fact and evidence, and not to add to the doom mongering and the fear-based state that people are being kept in. Just an observation there. As things currently stand at the moment, in the UK, we are due to get an announcement tomorrow, so we're told, from Boris Johnson, talking about how he plans to ease some of the lockdown measures. Isn't it incredible that we're looking forward to this? We've been so mind-controlled and so conditioned by this whole isolation thing, staying in our houses, that when the announcement comes that we're going to get some of our freedoms back, we're going to be allowed and permitted to do some of these things, people are actually getting excited about it like it's some big deal, when these things should never have been taken away from us in the first place. So we're getting word of things like garden centres are going to be allowed to open, and parks are going to be opened up, common spaces, beaches presumably as well, and there's talk of pub beer gardens may be allowed to open, so long as people keep their social distancing, and order their drinks from an app on their smartphone at their table and have the drinks brought to them rather than queuing at the bar. All these are the kinds of things we're hearing. We're getting talk of schools possibly reopening from the 1st of June. But what I do find interesting is that this past week, in the approach to these easing of lockdown measures that we're told is on the way, we have been informed that there's been a sudden, unexpected spike in the death figures. Well, would you believe it? After a week or so where we've been told that the death figures have kind of plateaued, leveled out, and they've started to go down, surprise, surprise, a couple of days ago, we're told there's been a rapid spike in the figures and it's gone right back up again. Is this going to be used to justify not giving us some of the freedoms back that have been speculated upon? I guess we'll know soon enough. We've had some celebrity deaths in the last 48 hours, all connected to the music industry. I was very saddened to hear of the death of Ty, the UK rapper, on the 7th of May. I met Ty a few times. He came in on my radio show on Galaxy Radio in Bristol back in the late 90s and dropped a live freestyle. He also did some freestyles for some of my mixtapes, and I used to bump into him on the circuit in London back in the day. So sadly, Ty passed away at the age of 47. He really was a skilled and talented and genuinely individual rapper. So the cause of death there is being said to have been pneumonia. But what is the betting that his death is going to get chalked up as yet another COVID-19 figure? As we know, people dying of anything now are getting recorded of having died from the coronavirus. And when it came to the reporting of Ty's death, we had the usual language that we see from the mainstream media. So they will say, rapper Ty dies after testing positive for COVID-ID. But when you look into it further, the cause of death was actually pneumonia. And of course they're going to say he tested positive because they're testing everyone in hospital now, allegedly. And the faintest trace of this thing goes down as a COVID-19 death. And even people that aren't testing positive, reportedly, are getting recorded as part of these figures as well. We've had stories of doctors saying that they've been financially incentivized by pharmaceutical companies to record causes of death as COVID-19. So that was Ty at the age of 47, which is no age to die. Then we had the news of Andre Harrell, who was a very well-known music executive in the US, who died at the age of 59. Andre Harrell worked for Uptown Records, part of MCA, and he's credited with having put Puff Daddy, aka P. Diddy, on the map and helping him create his Bad Boy Records imprint as part of MCA. So Andre Harrell will certainly have seen a thing or two in the industry and would have had a story or two to tell, having moved in such high circles. Then we had the news of Little Richard having died at the age of 87. And I've got to be honest with you, I actually thought Little Richard died decades ago. So I was quite surprised to hear that he's only just died. And the cause of death there is being listed as bone cancer. But again, what's the betting that eventually that will go down as a COVID-19 figure when we're told that Little Richard tested positive for this as well? So that's what's been going on this week. Another interesting thing about these announcements from the UK government that lockdowns are to be eased up slightly is the weather. So in the UK, we've had weeks and weeks and weeks of glorious sunny spring weather. It's been absolutely beautiful to be outside, and it's been the case this week. As I record this on Saturday, it's blazing hot outside. The weather is more like July than May. But looking at the weather forecast for the days ahead, the temperatures are due to take a tumble tomorrow, going down to somewhere around 12-13 degrees, and it's said to be getting grey and hazy and overcast and rainy. What a coincidence that the weather changes right at the time that we're going to be told, you can have picnics, folks, you can sit in the park, you can go on the beach with your family if you want, as long as you social distance, mind, keep 2 meters apart. Now, we know that weather manipulation is a thing. It's been factually proved that this is technology that exists, and it is in the hands of governments and those that they are affiliated with. So it could well be that as another method of mockery of the masses, they've engineered the weather to be shit for the next couple of days, right when we're told we can go out and have some of our freedoms back. I mean, a lot of what is getting done here seems to me to be coming straight out of the Tavistock Institute handbook of how to psychologically manipulate large groups of people. And we're seeing this in the newspaper headlines of the past few weeks. So I mean, I look at the newspaper headlines just to comprehend what it is that people are being told. I allow myself one look per day, and then I just shut it off and pay no further attention to it. But I've been keeping up to speed with what people have been asked to believe. So literally, one day in the newspapers, you will be told, the government is planning to ease lockdown restrictions much earlier than it thought. And it's looked at the figures for COVID-19 deaths, which appear to be going down. And ministers say there's no reason why things like pubs can't open again very soon and all the kids can go back to school. The very next day, in the same newspapers, you'll read something like, health officials have warned the government that the COVID-19 situation is much more serious than they thought, and the only way to avoid a second spike or a return of this deadly virus in the winter is to extend lockdown measures until 2022. Literally, this is what you will get. 2 consecutive days, conflicting information like that. Just the other day, there was a report that Matt Hancock, less of the Han, the UK health minister, is saying that he doesn't think it's going to be necessary for vaccinations in the UK to be mandatory because he feels enough people will want to voluntarily line up and take one of these things, which is good news for those of us who will never take a vaccine under any circumstances, because it lets us think that we might be able to slip through the net. But then the very next day, you'll get another headline saying, oh, mandatory vaccinations are the only way we're going to get back to regular society. It's the only way you're going to be able to go to pubs and restaurants again. It's the only way you're going to be able to get on flights and travel. So they are messing with our minds. These are psychological operations. It's psychological torture. That's what it amounts to. And you can bet that institutions like Tavistock have got social scientists and psychologists and anthropologists sitting around tables, not social distancing, and working out how they can best manipulate and shape and mould the perceptions of the mass mindset. They're fucking with our minds, really. And you get similar headlines coming from the United States when it comes to Trump. So a while back, Donald Trump was saying that he hoped to open up the United States on the 1st of May. May Day, Beltane, interesting date. And he was saying that he didn't see any reason why businesses and regular ways of life couldn't be getting back to normal by the 1st of May. So then the 1st of May approaches, and we now hear that they can't lift the restrictions yet, again for fear of a second spike in the virus, and things have to stay as they are for the foreseeable future. Then you'll hear promising stories about Donald Trump, such as he's taken control of the Federal Reserve, which is a very real thing. He's merged the Federal Reserve with the US Treasury. The Fed has been in the hands of private cartels of bankers for over 100 years since its formation. So it is big and significant news that Donald Trump is now effectively in charge of the Federal Reserve, and it's now back in the remit of the government rather than in private hands. Then you hear that Donald Trump has officially dumped the World Health Organization and the Center for Disease Control model for planning and predicting where the coronavirus death rates are going to go from here. Of course, sponsored by Bill Gates. The whole thing is under the control of Bill Gates. So you hear that Trump has kicked all that lot out. You think, well, that's good. But then you'll get a story that Trump is talking about a vaccination program that's going to be necessary in the United States. And this announcement comes after he's allegedly kicked out Bill Gates and the WHO from the government. So you've got to think to yourself, what the fuck is going on here? Why is there no consistency? 1 minute it looks like Donald Trump is on our side, man of the people, bit of a maverick, bit of a rebel, the way he's been portrayed in certain circles, and he's doing the bidding of the people, you know, trust him. Then the next minute he will give you every indication to think that he is yet another agent of the state. He's another lifetime actor. He's doing what he's told, and he's no different to anyone that's gone before. And I'm well aware of this narrative that is out there at the moment concerning Q, the individual known as Q, the group known as the QAnons. There's allegedly this group called the White Hats, and they're all working in conjunction with Donald Trump, so we're told, to take down the deep state, to arrest a whole bunch of paedophiles and Satanists and traitors to the United States and the world. Evil bankers, evil celebrities, famous people that are involved in child trafficking, pedophilia, the trading of adrenochrome. So we hear that this plan is underway for Trump and Q and all the people they're working with to take down these evil motherfuckers and restore some freedom and justice to the world, and that they're working on the side of the people, and that we can expect to hear developments and announcements on this front any day now. Well, this take on things has been going on for quite a while now, a few months by my reckoning, and I've been trying to keep the faith with it. My first instinct is to think that the whole thing is a psyop designed to disempower people so that they don't take any kind of personal action themselves. They sit back and think it's all good, Q's got it, Trump's got it, we can expect some results really soon. I would love to be wrong about this. So let me just put it out there. I would like nothing more than what we're hearing about Q and Trump to be absolutely correct. Who wouldn't want the takedown of the control system that we have? Who wouldn't want freedom and justice to be restored to the world. Of course I want that. And I would love to have to make one of these videos in the coming weeks and put my hands up and admit that I was wrong about the whole thing and that I should have kept my faith and my trust in the Q plan. So if that comes to pass, I will be only too happy to make that kind of admission. But as critically minded truth seekers, we are entrained to require evidence and proofs of claims that are made, because there's some wild claims being made out there about all kinds of things. And extraordinary claims require extraordinary proofs to back them up. And I'm not seeing any evidence or proof of this QAnon Trump rescue plan being a real thing. So I'm trying to preempt things here, because the universe seems to have a funny way of making certain situations happen. And I'll give you an example of this. So my wife and myself have often remarked on how it is that you might not have seen somebody that you know for a long time, and you might get into discussing them in a conversation, and you might say something derogatory about them. You might slag them off. It's just human nature. We all do it, okay? Then that very same day, you can go out into town and you will bump into the person that you've been having that conversation about, and they will make some kind of gesture of kindness towards you, some kind act, and you'll end up feeling really guilty about those bad thoughts that you had about them earlier in the day. I mean, does that happen to anyone else? Because it does happen to us. And it seems to be a very real mechanism that the universe is bringing into effect. So I'm kind of hoping that I'm preempting a situation. And by me saying that I've lost faith in this whole Q, Trump, Anon rescue narrative, that it's going to kind of kickstart some kind of action on that front to prove to me that I was wrong and to show me that I should have trusted in the plan all along. Because I don't mind being wrong. I've got no ego here. If I'm wrong, it means great things are happening in the world. Positivity that's going to benefit everyone. So I'm really hoping that I can bring that kind of situation around. Talking as I was about mainstream media reports and the kind of effect that they have on the public mindset and the great job that they do of mind control and propaganda, I was reflecting the other day on how if none of us looked at the mainstream media, if nobody turned on the BBC TV news or any other kind of mainstream news, if nobody picked up a so-called newspaper, if nobody switched on the radio, none of us would actually have any idea that the world was any different to what it normally is. We'd have no idea that there's supposedly this pandemic going around, that there's supposedly large numbers of people dying from it. We'd have no idea about things like social distancing and self-isolation and all these buzzwords that are going around. The world would just seem the same as it always would. It would seem like just another day. Everything would seem normal in organised society. The only reason any of us are acting differently, the only reason why large numbers of people are in fear, the only reason why other people are spouting all kinds of doom and gloom and dread-filled prophecies is because of what we've been told by the mainstream media and governments. If none of us paid any attention to any of these institutions, none of this mind control could work, and we could all be living normally and, who knows, even relatively freely. So the power that these institutions have is immense, and it follows that the responsibility that the people that work in these organisations have is also immense. And if it wasn't for so-called journalists who aren't anything of the sort, because a real journalist is someone that goes wherever the truth takes them, they uncover facts, they sniff out a story, and they have no ulterior motives and no agendas to stick to. They go wherever the story and the truth takes them. The mainstream so-called journalists that we have are nothing more than paid prostitutes. They take information from government, they take press releases from organisations, and they just regurgitate them verbatim. These people are traitors. Let's call it as it is. I mean, the government ministers that are knowingly lying to us, politicians all around the world, peddling deception and disinformation, and they know it to be so. These people, of course, are traitors. It's nothing short of treason, and they deserve to be tried and jailed, and that's quite mild, for their crimes against humanity. But actually, this applies to the prostitutes or the prostitutes in TV, radio, newspapers, mainstream media that have also been regurgitating a whole bunch of lies and provable deceptions. Duplicity against the people, because none of this agenda that we're seeing being slowly ushered in, and I'm not talking about the virus measures, I'm talking about everything that's going to be used to justify bringing in the vaccinations, the testing, the chipping, the increased surveillance, the doing away with of cash, the stepping up of 5G and smart cities and such. All this stuff is only going to be able to be put into place because of the treachery of journalists peddling these stories and making the public believe it. The public knowing no better than to go beyond mainstream media to do their own research. It not occurring to them that the internet is there as a tool for them to do their own research, as many of us already do. So the mind control, the propaganda only works because of these people. The journalists are no different to politicians. They should be hanging their heads in shame. How can they look at themselves in the mirror and be satisfied with what they see staring back at them? And as David Icke often says, what are these people going to say to their own children and their own grandchildren if this nightmare New World Order dystopian future does come in the way it's planned to be, and their children are living in perpetual slavery with no hope for any kind of emancipation? How are they going to look their own children and future generations of their line in the eye and justify their part in helping this thing to be brought in through the lies and the deception that they peddled because they wanted the paycheck, they wanted the pension plan, they wanted the fame or the prestige, they wanted to see their name out there on the news, or they wanted to go down in the history books or whatever. Straight treachery. It's incredible how these people can live with themselves. Do they not ever do any soul searching? I like to think they do. I like to think that before they go to sleep at night, they have troubling thoughts nagging away in their minds. They're poking themselves in the ribs, or their conscience is poking them in the ribs, saying, what are you doing? Why are you a part of this? They need to start listening to this voice. And the same thing goes for doctors. Let's be honest, let's be real talk. There's going to be a whole load of doctors out there with medical knowledge who know that the official line about this virus is a goddamn lie. And all these social restrictions and the taking away of our freedoms and everything else it has led to are all based on bad science and misinformation. There have been some brave doctors that have come forward and they've told us that we're being given false information about the true nature of a virus and how it spreads. So many doctors are going to know the same, but they're all staying silent as well because they want to look after their pension plan, their car, their yacht, their house. They're not thinking about the effect that it has on the wider world and on creation, on other people, all the suffering it's going to lead to, all the deaths that the lockdown has already led to, suicides, people undergoing all kinds of mental health issues, people undergoing physical health issues because they're cooped up in their house. They're not getting the medical attention they ordinarily would because many of them are too shit scared to go to a hospital because they think they're going to die from some virus, so they end up dying at home from something else through not getting the appropriate care. And all of this could be alleviated if it weren't for the lies of politicians, so-called journalists and doctors. So all the doctors that know better but aren't coming forward because they're just looking out for themselves should be just as ashamed as all the others. And I hope you have many troubling conversations with your higher self as well when you look in the mirror and when you look at your grandchildren and consider the kind of world they're going to have to live in. What else? Let me look at my notes. Some positive moves forward in recent weeks. Let's keep things in perspective. So there was the David Icke interview on London Real last Sunday with Brian Rose, the third in the series. Reportedly that had several million views on the live stream and it's since been shared many times. David Icke got deplatformed from YouTube last week. He's also been kicked off of Facebook. But that video is still being shared. People are finding ways. It is on BitChute. It's being shared on many private servers. So surely the view count for that video and all the information that David Icke put forward over the course of 3 hours must have had several million views by now. As I always say when I mention his name, it doesn't matter what people think individually of David Icke. It doesn't matter what claims he's made in the past, what information he's put out in the past. What we're focusing on here is what he's got to say about this current narrative, and his information is spot on, it's based on sound research, and he is the best and loudest voice that we have on the side of humanity, on the side of the people right now. So we should be supporting him in this matter. We can worry about other things that he says when all this madness is gone. But until then, I feel that we should be sharing his information as far and wide as possible. Also, there is the clip from the upcoming Plandemic movie featuring Dr. Judy Mikovits, which has also gone viral, excuse the pun. That reportedly received about 4 million views on YouTube before it too was taken down. I mean, what are mainstream thinkers making of this? Why do they think videos like that would get taken down from YouTube when they've been viewed 4 million times? If what she's saying is not true, if it's misinformation, if it's bad science, then what harm is it doing? And don't we have this thing called freedom of speech, or aren't we at least told that we still do? It's not openly admitted that we live in a fascist dictatorship and complete tyranny. Obviously we do, but we're told we live in democracies in these countries, and we're told that freedom of speech still exists. So if these people are just spouting a load of nonsense which has no foundation, why would YouTube and other platforms go to such efforts to remove them? What it tells any sensible critical thinker capable of common sense is that they've been removed because they're telling the truth. So there's encouragement to be drawn from the reports that the David Icke interview and the Judy Mikovits clip from Plandemic have between them received many, many millions of views around the world. Now, I don't feel that there are that many committed bona fide truth seekers who would identify as such. You know, we often speculate as to how many of us there are compared to them, and most people's best guess estimate is that we've got a 5% reach, if that, and 95% of the people are still fast asleep. So we'd be doing good if we got to 5%. So the fact that these videos have had millions and millions of views does tend to suggest that it's not just truth seekers that are watching them. It's not just preaching to the choir, it's not just the same noise going around in an echo chamber, but it's new people that have realised that all is not as it should be with this current narrative, and they're seeking out alternative takes on what could really be happening. And I like to think that these people have been directed to the David Icke London Real interview and the Judy Mikovits clip, and I like to think that these have to have won over some new hearts and minds and souls to the side of truth, freedom and justice. So that's got to continue, and all of us have to continue taking on the personal responsibility to share factual, truthful information that flies in the face of the mainstream narrative as far and wide as we can. And so that's where this week's suggestion or appeal that I would like to make comes in. I mean, I've been on the job now for about 7 weeks straight. I've been doing a whole ton of shows, I've been making videos, I've been putting information out, I've been full-time on trying to get as much information out as possible to reverse the way that the mainstream narrative is going on this whole situation. And I really, honestly, truly can't be doing any more. I'm doing as much as I can with my time. I've got a family, I've got to be there for them for a certain quota of time as well. But every other waking hour has been spent doing this kind of work. Everything else has been pushed to the side. I can't do any more. And it does seem to me that all the work in this current situation is being left to a small handful of people who are making all the contributions, and many other people are sitting on the sidelines. Now, I do get a lot of correspondence from people saying, what can I do? There's got to be some kind of contribution I can make. And so I've got a suggestion here for people that realise that action needs to be taken, but they don't know what their personal contribution can be. I think the time has come for an army of people to get onto mainstream media sites. So this can be the official website of newspapers. It can be YouTube articles which are coming from mainstream newspapers or mainstream TV or radio networks or mainstream sources of information. It can be chat threads on Facebook or other forms of social media on the official domain of mainstream media outlets, whether it's the Daily Mail, whether it's ITV, whether it's Sky News, whether it's BBC Radio 4, any of these operations that are peddling the mainstream version of events. We need an army of people to start blitzing these threads and these comment sections with videos and articles and other kinds of information that go contrary to what readers of these sites are going to be told, the mainstream narrative. So alternative information. The idea is that many people, as we know, only trust information from mainstream sources. So they're going to be going on these sites, they're going to be taking part in these chat threads. Now, they need to be encountering information that runs contrary to the official line every time they go on one of these sites and every time one of these subjects gets discussed on social media. So my appeal to many people out there, and anyone can do this, we've all got time on our hands, we've all got access to the internet, right, is find mainstream outlet platforms on the internet and absolutely bombard them, carpet bomb them with truthful alternative information. So another thing I would like to ask for is suggestions for what should be shared on these platforms. What specific videos, what specific documentaries, what specific articles, what specific blogs, what specific documents are the most valuable resources to be shared with a mainstream readership in mind, who have never before questioned the official narrative, but might just be swayed to take on board some alternative viewpoints if the information is put in front of them. So these are people that aren't going to go seeking alternative information. They're never going to come to the websites and the YouTube channels that the likes of me and many others run, because they don't know that they're looking for an alternative story. But if that story is placed right in front of them in their lap while they're looking at one of these sites, it could be a different matter, and many of these people could be turned and could come over on the side of truth and freedom, and God knows they need to. So my appeal to anyone watching that wants to take more of a role and feel like they're participating more in events is to get involved in this. Let's blitz mainstream media sites, and I'll leave the comment section in the video below open for people to suggest which specific resources are the best ones to be shared. And we'll see how that whole thing goes. Alright, so I've done a bunch of shows this week. I did a new episode of Good Vibrations, my regular podcast, which went out yesterday with David Parker and Dawn Lester. And they're the joint authors of a new book called What Really Makes You Ill? Why Everything You Thought You Knew About Disease Is Wrong. And during this interview, they are breaking down what they've come to discover through dogged research, 10 years worth of it, and speaking to a whole bunch of medical professionals, what they've come to understand the true nature of a virus to be. And they give evidence for how a virus can't be transmitted through airborne particles. It's not contagious. You can't get it from the person standing next to you in Sainsbury's coughing and spluttering all over you. So this, of course, makes an absolute mockery of social distancing and all this madness, pantomime, ritual that we're all going through for absolutely no reason. So do take a look at that, do take a listen, and that is a resource that I would suggest should be shared far and wide. These two have put 40 pages of citations in an 800-page book. So anyone that wants to, their first instinct is to scoff at it and throw the whole thing out and say, oh, they're just talking out their arse, they don't know what they're saying. Well, there's 40 pages of citations showing where they got this information from. They haven't just pulled it out of the ether. 10 years worth of research. So that's Good Vibrations, episode 156. I also appeared on the Lawful Rebel podcast with Nigel Howitt this week. That was a video interview. I really enjoyed it. I think there was a lot of value to doing that. I don't think it's released yet, but it's going to be on the Lawful Rebel website very soon. And as soon as the video is available, I'll put that on my YouTube channel and share it there. On Sunday, so this is tomorrow as I record this, it's currently Saturday the 9th of May, on the morning of Sunday the 10th UK time, I'm going to be appearing on a live stream videocast with PK Truth, the YouTuber known as PK Truth out of Melbourne, Australia. So this is going to be happening at 9 AM UK time. Obviously that's different time zones all around the world. It's 6 PM Eastern Standard Time in Australia. So if you're in Melbourne and those kind of areas, 6 PM Sunday, 9 AM Sunday UK time, 10 AM Sunday Central Europe time. It's the middle of the night still in the United States then, of course, but this video is one that I'll also be sharing on my YouTube as soon as the recording's available. But if you want to catch it live and you see this video in time, Sunday the 10th of May from 9 AM onwards on the PK Truth YouTube channel. But as I say, don't worry if you miss it, because I'll post the recording to my channel. Also, later on Sunday, I told you I've been busy, right? I'm going to be on another video interview with Billy Ray Valentine on the Iconic Network. So this is the platform coming out of David Icke and his sons. Billy Ray Valentine does a regular show on Iconic, and I'm going to be guesting with him on Sunday. I'm not entirely sure what time that's going out on the Iconic platform, but again, that is a video which I'll be posting the recording of to this channel as soon as it's available. So that's me chatting with Billy Ray Valentine about different aspects of what's going on, and we also got into some music, having a conversation about music, something other than the C word. Imagine that in these times. That's an act of rebellion in itself, right? And then finally, this coming Tuesday is actually my birthday. So imagine what a blast I'm going to have for my birthday in my house for something like the 53rd night running or something like that. I did have a big party planned. I was going to have people coming from miles around, friends that I've not seen for years. Clearly now that's not happening. So instead, to mark the occasion, as well as taking the day off from all this, I'm going to allow myself a day off, and I'm going to kick back and watch some favourite movies on Tuesday. But also on that day, so I suppose it's not a complete day off, I'm going to be doing a birthday chat podcast with 3 conscious rappers. Diesel Automatic, mighty, awesome MC out of Europe. Also Joe Murray and Steve Grant, 2 incredible rappers, hip-hop artists coming out of the States. The 4 of us are just going to be kicking it in a very informal fashion, going to be having a conversation about rights, what rights are, what freedom is, where it comes from, and why it's so important for us to fight for these things. Because without rights and freedom, your life ain't really worth a whole lot. So I'm looking forward to having a birthday conversation on Tuesday with Diesel Automatic, Joe Murray and Steve Grant. That will be posted to my podcast page on Spreaker, and also the video to it will be on YouTube in the next few days, so keep checking back for that. That's it for now. Do please put your suggestions in the comments for articles that would be of the most value to be shared to a kind of mainstream readership, audience, and do get involved. If you feel that you want to contribute something and up to now you've not known what to do, become part of this army blitzing these mainstream media platforms with truth bombs. That is a revolutionary act in these times as well. Catch you soon.